When we think about poverty, what comes to mind? Often we picture minorities, women with children, and homelessness, but poverty rarely fits neatly into those categories. Dorothy Allison, a woman from Greenville, South Carolina, articulated in her memoir that poverty is not just about the numbers and income, but about the way in which the negative, potent stigma about poverty affects socially marginalized people. In her own words, Allison describes poverty by saying it is the conviction that the life you have lived, the person you are, is valueless, better off abandoned, that running away is easier than trying to change things, that change itself is not possible. The objective of our project is to define poverty in a way that reflects a true understanding of all aspects of the issue and measures poverty in the most accurate way possible.
Our thesis includes a definition and proposed measurement of poverty. Poverty is the lack of central capabilities needed to attain basic human needs, which is dependent on sufficient income to satisfy these needs. These needs include adequate nutrition, medical care, education, equal treatment, political participation, and essential freedoms. Poverty should be measured by first analyzing these capabilities separately and then calculating annual income as established by the SPM, taking into consideration in-kind benefits, taxes, and geographical location.
Another necessary capability is medical care. Often people are not able to cover out-of-pocket medical expenses, and healthcare nullifies the need to put this financial strain on families. This can be measured by already in-place studies such as life expectancy and mortality rates in certain geographic regions. When we think about defining income, we can again reach back to Sen's thoughts on how we can understand poverty. In Poverty and Influence, he writes, "Poverty is to be the inadequacy, rather than the lowness, and it can be argued that poverty is not a matter of low well-being, but of the inability to pursue well-being precisely because of the lack of economic means."
Measuring income is a calculation of annual income as established by the SPM, which takes into account in-kind benefits such as income tax, Social Security, transportation, and child care. The appropriate income threshold should cover FCSU, which is defined as a dollar amount spent on a basic set of goods that includes food, clothing, shelter, and utilities. Geographically, it should be adjusted to reflect the needs of different family types and geographic differences in housing costs. When talking about the best way to measure poverty, we need to discuss an important idea. Not all measurements can or should be defined by a number value, but rather on a spectrum. In the words of Nussbaum, capabilities are plural, but that does not mean that each of them cannot be measured singly. In this way, we are able to discover valuable information by comparing one area to another in order to determine how well or poorly that area is doing in comparison to other places.
One of the most important capabilities is nutrition, which can be distinctly different than having enough food. Specifically, food deserts must be addressed, which are areas where it is difficult to buy good quality, fresh food. This can be measured in mileage away from food deserts, or simply if individuals are affected by this issue. Another necessary capability is medical care. Often people are not able to cover out-of-pocket medical expenses, and healthcare nullifies the need to put this financial strain on families. This can be measured by already in-place studies such as life expectancy and mortality rates in certain geographic regions.
A huge part of life is exercising freedoms, whether they be political, religious, or any other kind. How are we supposed to measure that? Sometimes a solution can be as simple as determining if the freedoms exist, without necessarily going in depth about the amount. In the same sense, the amount of social, gender, and sexual equality and equality in the workplace can be difficult to measure, but performing a general analysis of a community or a demographic in relation to another can give an overall assessment on improvements that should be made.
Effective ways people can raise themselves out of poverty is education, and access to education is essential to living a full life. It not only provides the tools and learnings necessary to obtaining a professional career, but also empowers and gives a belief that change is possible. Success and access to education can be measured by expected and mean years of schooling and graduation rates.
Many of the measures we have previously cited in reference to capabilities can be found in the Human Development Index, which was created to emphasize that people and their capabilities should be the ultimate criteria for assessing the development of a country, not economic growth alone. It measures components including, but not limited to, health functionings, education functioning, and economic resources.
Because there already exists many ways to measure poverty, it is appropriate to acknowledge those measurements already in place. The official poverty measure is an absolute threshold created by Molly Orshansky. The threshold reflects the lowest cost food plan, but is largely inaccurate because it does not take into account geographic adjustments, non-discretionary expenses, or in-kind benefits. The supplemental poverty measure does take these aspects into account, and even though it does not address capabilities, it does provide us with an accurate threshold for a sufficient income.
In conclusion, we believe that using these definitions of poverty, capability, and income best reflect the important aspects missing in the life of someone living in poverty. Defining what poverty means and deciding the best way to measure it is a major step to determining how to alleviate it. The reason we take into consideration capabilities as well as income is because a lack of capability is accompanied by insufficient income to satisfy our basic needs. We believe that our system of defining and measuring poverty most accurately demonstrates what is most necessary not only to survive, but to also live a fulfilling life.